Fire up the grill, boys, because this steak is coming in hot, and I have a request out of you. If you like your seasoning, if you like to get that flavor in there, then please, take a second. Take some of the salt that you're gonna get from this video and pour it all over that steak, baby. Season it up before we flame grill that piece of meat, because this video is gonna be really salty and I don't want all that excess salt to go to waste. Let's talk today about the Montreal Canadiens and their 5th overall pick, David Reinbacher, and not talk about whom the Canadiens should have taken instead. Don't go over why they had Reinbacher over certain guys like we have talked about multiple times in the past. Let's not go over the entire song and dance of Canadiens fans getting angry. Oh, they didn't take the guy that I wanted them to take. They reached, they took a guy for need, this, that, and the other thing. Let's talk instead about an idea that you don't need to believe. Because this article on TVA Sports goes out there and highlights it very eloquently. But because Habs fans are Habs fans, some of y'all are pretty smart, some of y'all are quick and reactionary to information. But I definitely do understand that some of y'all won't actually believe that this might have been the case, which is why I'm saying you can believe this or you cannot. It really depends on how you choose to view things. I'm just the messenger here, I'm just reading this article that I saw on TVA Sports, and the reason for that is because this piece goes out there and talks about how apparently some other NHL teams were fighting to draft David Reinbacher. This was published by Nick Cloutier back on July 18th, so just over a week ago, and the article is linked in the description. It's French, so unless you can speak French, don't go out there and read it. Or, if you're like me, you can right-click and click translate on the Google machine so the entire article gets put into English. But what I wanted to do was read this article, go over some of the ideas it presents, and talk about how apparently it wasn't just one or two, but a good amount of teams that were drafting after Montreal really wanted this guy, and apparently the Canadiens' picking of him ended up changing the entire fate of the draft. Now, you could say similar things about another big right-handed defenseman that was also taken a little bit too high in some people's eyes. Back in 2019, the Red Wings drafted Moritz Seider 6th overall. That was seen as a bold move back then. A lot of people were not on board because Seider was supposed to go a lot later. And you had yourselves the repercussions afterwards saying, hey, teams like Edmonton, for example, that were drafting immediately after, they might have wanted Seider. You had some conversations on other teams that might have been in the mix for this guy, who ended up taking other players instead because Seider wasn't available. This is the same sort of idea that's being discussed with Reinbacher. Let's go over to this piece and read what it has to say at the top. Now, the translation isn't really the best here, so I'm gonna paraphrase and reword some of these just to make it make a little bit more sense. If the Montreal Canadiens had not looked at David Reinbacher, several teams would have been asked to set their sights on the right-handed D-man. This is what TVA Sports was able to learn during a casual conversation with a source who was very close to the action at the NHL's draft in Nashville. When the Habs stepped onto the podium to draft Reinbacher at 5th overall, they screwed up the plan of several teams. Take a look at this. It's what the source goes out there and tells TVA Sports. The Arizona Coyotes, who had drafted Dmitri Simashev 6th overall, initially had David Reinbacher as their preferred target, confirmed the source, who preferred to remain anonymous. Next, the 7th place Philadelphia Flyers picked Russian Matvei Michkov. I can't tell you if they liked Reinbacher more, but they also liked Reinbacher a lot. In 8th place, the Washington Capitals turned to American forward Ryan Leonard. As was the case with the Coyotes, he was not their plan A. A Caps employee told me, if the Capitals had their way, they would have taken Reinbacher. Then you have yourselves the Nashville Predators. They were known to have wanted to move up to 5th overall. GM Barry Trotz wanted to make a splash in front of his fans by making a trade with Kent Hughes. Many believed that Michkov was at the heart of the Predators' efforts. Nevertheless, it was for David Reinbacher that the Predators wanted to trade up for. And so with that idea in mind, all of a sudden you start to think about what the Montreal Canadiens had and what these other teams were thinking about. And you realize that according to this article, which you can fairly say is not trustworthy, you're fair to not believe this. According to this piece, the Arizona Coyotes at 6th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers at 7th overall, the Washington Capitals at 8th overall, and the Nashville Predators, who were at 15, that were trying to move up with Montreal, they all wanted Reinbacher as potentially their main guy. And that's kind of nuts. Now, for Arizona, Philly, Washington, you could say, all right, 6, 7, 8, it's a little bit easier to stomach there. Reinbacher was already seen by many people as to potentially going higher. And he did, he went 5th. But Montreal taking him at number 5 ultimately has a lot more weight when you acknowledge that apparently the Nashville Predators also wanted to take him at number 5. We'd already made a video earlier after the draft completed that went over the hypothetical trade idea that the Nashville Predators were thinking of giving Yaroslav Askarov and the 15th overall pick to Montreal for the 5th overall, and that video was kind of crazy because he had Habs fans freaking out in the comments. Why did Kent Hughes not take this pick? The Habs drafted a guy in Reinbacher that was supposed to go later anyway, so if the Canadiens dropped down to 15 and grabbed a bunch of stuff in the process, is it worth it to go down from Reinbacher to somebody else that you take at 15th overall instead? Like, it's not that bad of a trade-off, and you could definitely debate that with Askarov being the goalie that he is, this guy could make this trade worth at tenfold and more by the time he hits his prime. But these conversations get so much crazier when you acknowledge that Nashville was apparently willing to trade away all that. The 15th overall pick, they used it to select Matthew Wood, University of Connecticut guy. He's a very good player. Yaroslav Askarov, the potential goalie of the future in this league. And they had some other stuff too, maybe some extra thirds or whatever. They wanted to trade this away for Reinbacher. Now, this conversation, this video right here, if you choose to believe it, okay, let's just assume you do, this is going to do a few things. Firstly, it's going to get a lot of Canadiens fans getting all pissed off at Kent Hughes for saying, what? Why did you not accept that trade? Why did you not move down? Is Reinbacher really that good that you're willing to pass up on Askarov, etc., etc.? But what this also does is it takes the Predators fans and allows them to say the same thing. Hey, why are you trying to trade away Askarov for Reinbacher? Like, of course, no disrespect to Reinbacher. I've already made the videos praising him. I've made the videos talking about how I'm okay with the pick. But I'll say this, Reinbacher has not accumulated that goodwill just yet to allow people outside of Montreal to feel that he was the right pick at 5. Maybe NHL teams feel differently. Maybe the Coyotes, the Capitals, the Nashville Predators, and the Flyers, maybe they all thought he was a top 5 worthy pick. But when it comes to the general public, which is like 99% of the people that watch this sport anyway, for us, we're not going to look at this with immediate glowing eyes and say, yeah, Reinbacher was the right pick. It's going to take years for this guy to develop, improve, and eventually become a top defender for us to believe that. It took Seider 3 years, pretty much. Seider was always seen as a reach when he was taken 6th overall in 2019. Only now are we saying that that guy was pretty worth it at that spot. And so, for Reinbacher, public perception on this is not going to change for a long time, which is why for the Predators, you could very well say, wow, I'm very happy Kent Hughes did not decide to do that trade, because I don't know how I would have felt if I had seen the team trade away Askarov just to get Reinbacher at 5th overall. Also, trade away that 15th overall pick too? Trading away Askarov to move up 10 spots in the draft just to draft Reinbacher? Like, it's wild, dude. This entire thing is going to be so fun to follow over the next few years because, of course, I believe in Reinbacher. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be great. But I can understand that from the perspective of the regular fan who is just tuning into the highlights, you're looking at the stats, you're looking at some of the analysis done on Sportsnet, TSN, all the other websites, etc. I can understand why so many people were not super high on Reinbacher. It's understandable. Plus the comments that Kent Hughes made, it doesn't make it any better. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel now, learning that with that trade offer the Nashville Predators had for the Canadiens and Kent Hughes, they would have drafted Reinbacher at 5 in general. They wouldn't trade up to get Michkov. They wouldn't trade up to try to get Leonard. Nah, they wanted Reinbacher too. Maybe Reinbacher and Roman Josi together would have been an amazing pairing, but at the end of the day, this is not going to happen because the trade was not accepted. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, this article is going to be linked in the description. We did not go over the entire piece. There's still some more analysis done, so you can read it yourself if you want to get that. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.